What is going on, traders? We got a few things to talk about. We're just going to get straight into it. Like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So today in the Discord, I did not trade anything. I didn't alert any trades. However, I did alert to everyone before open that I will be I will be adding shares of Apple into my portfolio, and then I will be adding shares of Tesla into my portfolio as well. And then I dollar cost average Google at 140 or around 140, 142 range. So although I didn't trade, our long-term plays are looking good so far. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm also going to go over Apple and Tesla, my thoughts on Tesla as well in this video. So let's get straight into it. So right now we are looking at SPY monthly time frame. Let's actually go down to the weekly time frame. And one thing I talked about in the last video is the possibility of a bounce being near, right? So we have some really good signs here for the bulls. I will say that much. Our first sign is the fact that we closed within the range of these guys right here at around above 495, right? 490, 495 more or less, right? So the fact that we closed within the range of these guys, that is a good sign. Now, keep in mind, this is the weekly time frame. The week isn't up, but if we go to the daily time frame, we close within the range of these guys, right? And so one thing I want to see next for the SPY is for us to get within the range of these buyers right here, these bulls right here, right? I tell you guys all the time, candles show you where bulls and bears are all the time, right? So if we can manage to get above 510, I think that goes without saying, considering what we saw today, where we just kept rejecting 510, or every time we got a little bit above 510, we saw a rejection towards the downside. We saw a bear step in, right? So if we can manage to get above 510, I think you're going to see a lot more upside. My first target will be 515. After that, I'm looking at 518. 515 will be your psych level, by the way. So 515, 518, and then highest we could go is about 540. Okay, 540 is what I'm looking at for the SPY if we continue to see more upside. However, before we jump the gun and assume that the market is just going to continue to go up tomorrow or the rest of this week, one thing we want to see, and I tell you guys this all the time, and I go off the 2-hour time frame when I'm talking about my entries, right? So if we go to the 2-hour time frame here, right, I'm looking for a break, retest, and then I want to see a move higher above 510, right? So right now, the good sign here is that we mounted this gap fill on the SPY right here in this area. We mounted the gap fill at around, I want to say 500, between 500, 503. We mounted this gap fill here. So that is a good sign, right? So the next thing we want to see happen is a break and retest of 510. And from there, I do think we have the potential to head towards 530. Highest I'm looking at is about 540 on the SPY. So again, so far things are looking good. It's also important to note, if we go to the weekly time frame, we bounced off the bottom of this channel. I don't know what happened here, but we did bounce off the bottom of this channel, right? It's important to keep in mind that this is not a bear flag. It doesn't have a flagpole. It's just a simple rising channel, and we bounced off the bottom of it. So things are looking good so far for bulls, but again, we want to see those key levels get broken before we start marrying the idea of more upside. Respect the levels, they won't respect you. All right, so when we look at the triple Qs, so triple Qs, good signs here. Okay, we closed above 410. That is a very good sign. But like I told you guys, when it comes to the SPY, we closed within the range of these guys right here. Let's get rid of all this. Feel free to screenshot the levels. They're highlighted in yellow to the right, right? But one thing we did see on the triple Qs that's a very good sign for bulls is that we closed within the range of these guys right here at around 415. Very good sign. But what we want to see happen next, and this can easily happen pre-market, is for us to close within the range of these bulls right here, right here in this range, or around above 425 is what we want to see the triple Qs get within. Okay, we want to see triple Qs get within this range. If the triple Qs manages to get within 425 or above 425, then we could be looking at a move as high as the 450s, right where this gap fill is. Okay, right where this gap fill is. We have a gap fill, and then we have a level at around 447. So that's what we want to see. Okay, again, we go down to the 2-hour time frame. Like I told you guys, that's how I enter my trades, right? You want to see a break and retest of 425. We're currently above it after hours, and then you want to see us head towards the upside. Obviously, if you're bullish. If you're bearish, then obviously you want to see all this get destroyed. So that's what I'm looking at for the triple Qs. If the triple Qs manages to give up 415, you are in trouble all over again. So again, things are looking really, really good. Okay, really good. So let's go over the NQ and the ES, because I know a lot of you talk about how I should talk about the futures more. Right, so if we look at NQ, what we want to see with the NQ and it's been having a very hard time doing this, is a break and hold above 17,700. Now, right now, it's hugging this trend line. It's kind of trading above this trend line. We want to see a little bit more confirmation, but if NQ can get above this blue trend line here, I'll zoom out in a bit to show you guys exactly what it is. You can be looking at a move higher. I would say 17,800 is next. Then you can be looking at a move towards as high as 18,500. So you can be looking at some pretty significant levels here. Now, as far as that blue trend line, it's just this trend line right here. You bounced here, you bounced here, and as you can see, triple Qs is having a hard time just closing above this blue trend line here. But on the bright side, triple Qs is above 17,300. That is a good sign. Ultimately, you want to see this thing get above 17,700. You're constantly seeing it reject. We'll just have to wait and see. If it gets above 17,700, 17,800 is next. Highest you can go is 18,500, guys. All right. ES. So when it comes to the ES, if we go to the weekly time frame, weekly time frame, like I showed you guys when it comes to the SPY, you're bouncing off the bottom of this rising channel, right? You bounced off 4,800. So that is a great sign. You closed above 4,800, you bounced off 4,800. Things are looking good. What you really want to see right now for the ES, I was about to say triple Qs, what you really want to see right now is for the ES to get above 5135. 5135 is your key level, or at least your key range. Right now you're in the range of these guys right here. Hopefully you guys can see that, right? Right now you're within the range of these guys right here. You're above 5K. Beautiful, beautiful sign. If we go to the 2-hour time frame, once again, what do you want to see? And as you guys can see, we're having a hard time breaking above this. So you know I don't make these levels up. Respect the levels. They're not going to respect you. All right, so all we want to see, break, retest, boom. All right, you're heading to the moon. Chances are you're heading towards 5,300. Highest you can be looking at is 5,500 on the ES. If you cannot get above 5,130, then chances are you're going to head back down here towards 5,000, or 5,100, I should say. 5,100 is your first target, and then from there you could be heading as low as 4,800 all over again. So definitely don't want to see that. All right, you definitely want to see this hold. It's also important to note that you are holding this, or you're mounting above this gap fill level right here. I tell you guys all the time, gaps have very strong support and resistance. So as long as we're holding, I would say 50-70, which is where this gap fill is, right, you're looking pretty good. But again, you want to see the ES mount 5135. All right, so that's what I'm looking at for the ES. The VIX, I don't really have much for the VIX. It pretty much did everything I expected it to do, and more actually. But like I said, when the VIX starts spiking, it's usually a sign that the bottom is near. Okay, that's typically what happens. All right, now you don't get like a spike like this, but this is a good sign. All right, this is a good sign. This massive bearish candle, pretty good sign, I would say. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes to the VIX, but I don't have much more else for the VIX until it like drops to like 15 or something. There is a gap all the way at 23. That just goes to show that the market is overall bullish, and eventually we will have to fill this gap to the downside on the VIX. So really excited about that. So let's get into some buying opportunities, right? So I want to talk about Tesla first. I think Tesla is a great buying opportunity right now. Despite what you think about Elon, despite what you think about the company, I don't necessarily care. Despite all the FUD and the reasons you want to tell yourself not to buy Tesla, I don't care. I think Tesla is a great buying opportunity. I alerted to Discord members that I am buying Tesla shares at 220. It dropped all the way to 220, and right now it is respecting this support level at, well, 220, right? So we're on the monthly time frame, by the way, and there's a reason why I'm on this time frame. And so right here you have, crazy enough, you have a symmetrical triangle on Tesla. Now, can Tesla head lower than 220? Absolutely. All right, I'm not gonna act like that can't happen. Okay, Tesla can definitely head lower, but you as a long-term investor should not care about that, right? And so 220 is my first target. If we go to the daily time frame here, and I'm going to give you guys a target on where I think Tesla's going to go. I'm not saying it's going to happen from here. I'm saying long term, this is one of my targets. But if we talk about a discount, right? If we're talking about how far Tesla has dropped so far, you're looking at a 50% discount, 55% discount on Tesla. That is an absolute buy, okay? Absolute buy. You have to buy that, all right? You do what you want, but me, I have to buy that, okay? That's an absolute buy. You're talking about a 50% discount. If you go to the store or Best Buy or whatever, and you're looking at a laptop, and that laptop is $1,800, right? And you're like, no, I'm gonna buy it when it's cheaper. And then next week or so or next month or so, it drops all the way to $900. You're telling me you're not going to buy that? Absolutely. When in reality have you ever seen a 50% discount on something, right? When in the real world have you seen that happen, right? So you have to treat the stock market the same way. You have to treat these Mag 7 stocks the same way. Not even the Mag 7s, growth stocks, Uber, McDonald's, whatever you want to invest in, right? You have to treat these the same way, and you got to start looking at the numbers and look more so at the percentages, right? So I saw Tesla was at a 50% discount. Absolute steal. Okay, absolute steal. Now, can Tesla head lower? Yes, but again, as a long-term investor, you should not care about that, right? I'm not guaranteeing it's going to head lower. I'm just saying it's a possible. And so if we're talking about targets, right? So there's a short-term projected move and a long-term projected move, or long-term measured move, I should say, when it comes to patterns, right? Tesla has already hit the short-term projected move. Now, what I mean by that is if you measure the open and close of the symmetrical triangle, right? And then you bring the measurement to the original breaking point of the symmetrical triangle, you're looking at a move towards 650 on Tesla. Now, Tesla has already hit the short-term projected move. Well, now when we're talking about short-term projected moves, it's usually half of the measured move. So typically, when a stock breaks out of a pattern such as a falling wedge, rising wedge, whatever pattern you like, right? It hits this short-term projected move. You may see some type of pullback or turbulence, and then eventually it'll head towards that measured move. Now, does this happen all the time? No. Does it? The stock always hit its measured move for a massive pattern such as this? No. But do you take the chance of betting on Tesla heading that high? Yes. I mean, 5 years from now, Tesla is most likely going to be a giant. Most of the Mag 7s are going to be giants. They're already giants, but they're going to be much bigger giants. So you have to look at it like that. Now, if we're talking about a move lower, or a bigger move towards the downside, I should say, Tesla can head as low as 150, right? 150, somewhere around here, 150, 145. That is very much possible, right? But one thing I want you guys to pay attention to is what happened today, right? Today we got fake news, right? We saw that, there was news about Trump or whatever, Trump talking about a 90-day postpone on tariffs, right? And then you saw what happened with the market. The market went absolutely ballistic towards the upside. I mean, as soon as we entered Tesla, our Tesla and Apple shares, right? They just jumped like $10-15 towards the upside, and we were like deep in profit, right? I was up like 7K on, just Apple alone, right? So beautiful thing to see, right? And that's why I tell you guys to invest, or not tell you guys, but suggest that people should start investing and not worry about the FUD around a stock, because you don't know what's going to happen. Today is a perfect example of that. You just don't know what's going to happen. Tomorrow, Jerome Powell can just come out and be like, you know what, emergency rate cuts. You don't know. So why take the chance on waiting till Tesla hits, whatever target you think Tesla's going to hit? Let's say you think Tesla's going to head towards $100 for whatever reason. Why take that chance when you don't know what's going to happen? You don't know if Trump's going to back off on his tariffs, right? You don't know if Jerome Powell's going to come out and say, you know what, rate cuts, right? You just don't know. And today was a perfect example of that possibility happening, right? So I do think Tesla is going to head towards 700s. Highest I'm looking at is about 950 on Tesla. 220 is one of my buying targets. 50% discount, definitely a buying target. My next buying opportunity will be at around 70 to 80% of 80% drop, right? Where we just continue from previous highs. I'm trying to find this thing. I can never get this stuff right. Here it is. All right, so when you're talking about a 50% drop, if Tesla drops another, let's say 20-30%, yes, I'm buying again. And so here's another thing I want you guys to keep in mind. If you are the type of trader to panic, or investor to panic when you see red, because the market is always going to be red sometimes, especially when you're jumping into trades or investing, you should probably separate your investment portfolio from your trading account, right? You shouldn't have them in the same portfolio, at least in my opinion, right? Now, everybody's different. Maybe some people have more discipline than others, but I don't think the average retail trader should have both their trading account and their investment portfolio in the same account, right? I think you should have your investments in a 401k, retirement account, whatever you want to do. I think you should have those completely separate from your trading account, because let's say you have $0, right? You just used all your buying power for trading, but you have, 200 Apple shares, right? 300, 200 Apple shares. You're going to be tempted to sell those Apple shares from your accounts just so you can trade more, right? So I do think you should have them separate, do what you want. But ultimately, guys, I think Tesla's heading towards 700. I'm not saying it's going to happen from here. Tesla historically bottoms in the month of April or May. It's very random, but sometimes it's May, sometimes it's April. But historically, Tesla has always bottomed between April and May, and usually the first and second quarter for Tesla is its worst quarters, and then the third and fourth quarter is when Tesla starts picking up all over again, right? So I suggest you just ignore the FUD, ignore the news and all that other stuff, because despite what you think about Tesla, let's actually look at Apple. But despite what you think about Tesla, whether you think it's a bad company or you have every Mag 7 stock right now has bad news following right now. Apple is a good example of this as well. No Mag 7 has good news behind it right now. Right, and that's usually the normal thing, right? No Mag 7 stock or big company is not going to have a bad quarter or two. It's just part of the game, right? So when you're talking yourself out of buying these stocks because I don't know, I'd be saying stuff like, Apple's not innovative, it doesn't, produce anything new for its consumers. 10 years from now, Apple is going to be a giant still, right? 10 years from now, people are still going to use Apple products. Everywhere you look, someone has an Apple iPhone or Apple Watch or whatever, right? 10 years from now, Apple is probably going to be way more innovative, probably have something crazy in regards to AI, right? So regardless of a bad quarter or two, it doesn't matter, right? You're looking at the long term. Do you think Apple is going to be below $100 by 2030, where it's all the way down here somewhere looking crazy at $50, or do you think Apple is going to be at all-time highs by 2030? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And so when we're talking about Apple, if we go to the weekly time frame here, and I'm sorry I'm ranting, but I just really want to put you guys on game, but if we're looking at Apple here, let's get rid of all of this. Historically, well, right now Apple's at the 200 MA. Historically, every time Apple has hit the 200 MA, it has bounced off of it. It bounced here, it bounced here, it bounced here. I know it gets smaller, but you guys get the idea. It bounced here. Every single time Apple has hit the 200 MA, it has bounced off of it. Okay? So, even if you think Apple's going to go lower, are you going to bet against a 100% win rate off a 200 MA? No, right? You shouldn't, right? So, it's very much possible that this could be the bottom for Apple. And if this is the bottom for Apple, this could be a sign that the market is bottoming out, right? I don't know. I can't say for sure. But if we're talking about the history of Apple, every single time, guys, every time it hit the 200 MA, it bounced. All right. So, yeah, that is why I decided to buy into Apple shares. I mean, that's not obviously the only reason why. I don't really have a target for Apple, honestly. I mean, all-time highs at this point. I mean, all-time highs probably be at 300, 400 by next year. Who knows when they invent something new, okay? But yes, again, it doesn't, you should not be focused on what bad news a company has, because every major company has a bad quarter or two. You're talking about the Mag 7 here. The Mag 7 that runs the country, runs this country. Without the Mag 7, the United States is trash. Okay? The market is going to go to oblivion if Apple is all the way at $50, if Tesla is all the way at $50, if Meta is all the way at $100. That's not happening. Okay, in no world is that happening, right? If that happens, then the world is probably ending. Okay, so you have to be realistic. You have to tell yourself or ask yourself, 5 years from now, where do you see Apple? Do you genuinely see Apple below $100? Or do you see Apple at all-time highs, right? Same thing with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA provided you a beautiful buying opportunity at 92. Again, 5 years from now, do you see NVIDIA at $30? Or do you see NVIDIA at all-time highs? So these are the questions you have to ask yourself when it comes to investing. And I'm not saying these stocks can't go lower, right? But that's not something you should be focused on as a long-term investor. Okay, that's not something you should be focused on, right? Someone in my comments was like, why would you go with Google, or why would you invest into Google? I mean, who doesn't use Google, right? Where do you think Google's just going to blow off the face of the planet? No, it's Google, right? We don't care. I don't care about their cell phone service or anything like that. And this is not a jab or anything. I don't care about their cell phone service and blah, blah, blah. Do you think Google is going to be lower 5 years from now, below $100? Or do you think Google is going to enter all-time highs all over again? At one point in time before Google split, this thing was at like 1K. At one point in time before Amazon split, it was at 3K per share. At one point in time, before Tesla split, this thing was at 2K per share. I'm just saying. All right, so that's my little rant, guys. Again, it wasn't like a jab or anything. I'm just putting you guys on game. I'm just giving you guys a different mindset. You know, a lot of you like to use the word defensive when I talk. It's just how I talk. I don't know why people keep saying that you're so defensive and things like that. I don't know. I never see it used for anybody else. I'm gonna just leave it at that. But other than that, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think this is the bottom for the market? Do you think we're gonna head higher? Do you think Tesla is a good investment opportunity now? Right? Do you think Google is a good investment opportunity? Do you think Apple is a good investment opportunity? Discord link is in the description below if you want access to our long-term investment portfolio as well as our trades. Again, didn't trade today, but I'm definitely looking to trade at least tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, because I definitely have a goal set for this week that I want to reach. So we'll see. Other than that, until the next video, traders, have a good one.